So I've been spending the last couple of weeks grinding deck building and also watching a lot of games on Dueling Book, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. This format is rough, and I mean really, really rough. Even though it looks like a watered down version of last format, it's kind of not because not every single deck got a nerf, and some of the nerfs weren't even that big. Not only that, but every single deck has a completely different weakness, and not everybody agrees on what the best deck actually is. When I saw the ban list at first, I believed that Despia was going to be the best deck of the format, but people maintained their stance on Kashtira being the best deck. And even though I'm not a big fan of Kashtira myself, and I don't even think it's that good, my opinion doesn't matter. When you deck build, you need to understand that you don't deck build to beat the best deck of the format, but rather to beat whatever people choose to play. For context, let's just say that we're in a Tier Elements Tier 0 format. Even though everybody agrees on the fact that Tier Elements is the best deck, if everybody chooses to play Flunderies and you got like 9 Bestials in your main deck, you're gonna have a really bad time. And of course, Tier Elements and Flunderies are polar opposites and have completely different weaknesses, so if you're deck building only to beat Tier Elements and you end up playing against a bunch of Flunderies, you're really going to be losing pretty much all of your matches. And this isn't just me saying that, like pretty much every single other pro player will say the same thing. With that being said, I just don't really feel like anything is right this format. Last format, Kashtira was by far the best deck, so it actually made sense to main deck Nibiru, Book of Eclipse, Book of Moon, etc. Whereas now, unfortunately, Kashtira got a hit, so people are actually changing to other decks including Labyrinth, which really doesn't lose to the same thing. And you can't really afford to main deck Cosmic Cyclone and respect Labyrinth that much, because if you do and you end up playing against Kashtira and you lose the dice roll, Cosmic Cyclone doesn't really deal with their board. And Nibiru is not even that great because it has a lot of dead matchups. So Dragon Link is seeing a little bit more play, and Assault Synchron is a new card that actually is helping the deck quite a lot and allows them to recover from Nibiru really well. And then if you're a European player, you're also going to be encountering a lot of Runic Sprite decks, and none of these builds, so the For Hire version as well as the Evil Twin version, lose to Nibiru because they go on Gigantic on summon number 4. Rika is now really popular because Diablosis doesn't exist anymore, so it's not like you can get your cards banished, and that deck really doesn't care that much about Nibiru. So very similarly to Dragon Link, Rika can recover really well from Nibiru if they have Strand access. Oh, and also people have absolutely no idea how to stop Rika. Speaking of which, people also have no idea how to deal with Vanquished Soul, and that's a new really good deck. It also shares no common weakness with any of the deck I just listed. It only needs 4 summons to be able to play, so Nibiru is pretty much always dead against them. This format is extremely diverse, but maybe not in the best way imaginable. Just because a lot of decks are seeing play, that doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of decks can be played. Your deck has to meet so many criterias in order to be considered decent in this format, and it's really tough to do. Your deck needs to consistently counter a Rizard, which is obviously really difficult because it's a Macrocosmos and kind of like a proactive banish. Your deck needs to play through quite a couple of hand traps, including Bestials, Drillin Logbird, Ash, Veiler Imperm, and potentially Dimension Shifter. Your deck also needs to be strong enough to counter the Runic-based strategies, which is again really difficult because their end board is pretty big. And your deck cannot afford to lose to floodgates such as Gozen Match, Skill Drain, and there can only be one, which can be main decked by Labyrinth and Vanquished Soul. But then again, you also cannot afford to play a safe mid-range or control deck and not make a lot of negates because then you get OTK'd. And you also need to understand every single ins and outs of your own deck and also your opponent's decks, otherwise every single match will always go into time. So to sum it all up, your deck needs to be extremely consistent, extremely powerful, extremely resilient, and also very resourceful, and being able to beat just about anything. Yeah, doesn't sound like too many decks can do that. And again, when I see a card like Nibiru, I really struggle to see how it can really help out. Again, Vanquished Soul does not lose to Nibiru because all they really need is 4 summons. Dragon Link doesn't care too much and you can even set up like a Bestial Dispatter or Baron in order to negate your Nibiru. Kashtira either loses to Nibiru if they're greedy or doesn't lose to Nibiru at all if they summon a Rizard in 4 summons. Labyrinth and Runic can't even lose to Nibiru even if they try. Despia is also usually immune to Nibiru unless your opponent is really greedy. And it's not like you can say that evenly matched is that much better. It's honestly really weak against Labyrinth even though it looks really good because they can turbo out like Eradicator Virus and either call traps or call spells and you're gonna lose a lot of cards. And it's also pretty mediocre against Runic Sprite because they usually turbo out the Carrot. Against Rika, it's decent but not that great if they turbo out Regulus. And of course, there are more board breakers, but none of them are perfect. Dark Ruler No More is one of the really good ones because it actually does a lot against the Runic Sprite deck. The issue is it doesn't deal with anything in the graveyard, and of course they can still be holding Runic spell cards. And Dark Ruler against Kashtira is cool and all, but if they have Shifter, then it doesn't matter that you drew Dark Ruler because you're probably not going to be able to do anything because of the Shifter anyways. And again, you can't OTK under Dark Ruler, so you better be able to make a huge board. Sometimes you're gonna have to rely on drawing like Dark Ruler, Duster, and full combo, which is ridiculous. Long gone are the days where you could actually draw average hands and be able to win going second. Now you're pretty much forced to rely on drawing certain specific cards, and these cards might be really bad in other matchups, so you have to make concessions. Deck building is extremely sporadic because, again, every single deck has different weaknesses and you can't really respect all of them at the same time. You can watch games on Dueling Book all you want, but it might give you a skewed representation of what the metagame actually is. A few weeks ago, every single match I've watched almost included Dragon Link, but nowadays people are actually playing the deck way less, even though the deck actually got a huge boost. And I want to say it's pretty much the same thing with Vanquish Soul. The deck was really hyped at first, but now it's kind of dying off. But yeah, all of that to say that there's a lot of variance in this format, and you can try your best, but nothing's guaranteed. Anyways, that's all I had for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.